What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Got the internet fixed. It was really bugging out Thursday at the end of the show there. Got it fixed. Looking clear here. Lips are a little blue. It's okay. I'm breathing. It's blueberries. But joining me, as always, Slim Cliffy. We didn't coordinate, like wrestling sweaters or something, but, we're in gear. What's going on?
Not a whole lot. Was frustrated with the NHL provider I have up here. I was blacked out of the Vancouver-Detroit game, and Vancouver is by air travel is over 4,000 kilometers, which is about 2,500 miles away from here. I thought it was weird to have a regional blackout, basically the span of the continental United States. From where I am. So I ended up watching a little bit of that Flames Islanders game. Full day of hockey. You got to love that. Love when we have full slates like this. Even like a late afternoon game. Boston plays late afternoon. You got an early-ish Florida game just after supper, Eastern time. So lots of hockey all day long. But 7 interesting games tonight because 5 of the 14 teams are returning from their bye week. Not all the teams came back right after the All-Star break. It was Columbus, Ottawa, Seattle, Nashville, and Los Angeles that still were making their way back from their bye. So first games for those teams today. See what those look like, but there's some high totals on some of them, so we definitely have to consider them at the very least.
There's some good news and there's some bad news with the bye weeks, right? The good news is the Sharks haven't been on any slates until the middle of next week. The bad news is the Sharks will be on next week's slate coming off like a 48-day bye. So that could be a scene. We also have MMA today, 4 o'clock, 14 fight card. I have a quick picks video up on my Twitter. Also have a link down, or you can go through the chat if you want. You can go and get those MMA sims if you haven't already. It's going to be pretty sweet. Next week is a really good pay-per-view card, but lots of sports I'll be watching tonight. Let's get into this 7-gamer before we do. Once again, just wanted to say thank you guys so much for the support over the past month and a half with your super chats, with your affiliate signups, sharing the video, liking the video, talking shit. Well, I mean, anything really helps. There's no such thing as bad publicity. We really appreciate it. And drop the link in the chat there. If you're looking to go premium, any sport, any subscription, there is a 25% off PGA right now if you use promo code Birdie. If you are a PGA player, you can check out the Sims at 25% off, so check that out. Let's get into this 7-gamer. Big fan of 7-gamers. I don't know why, but it's just 7. New Jersey Devils with a 2.9 total heading into Carolina. The Hurricanes have a 3.6. Svechnikov should be back. Antti Ranta out for a while. Sucks that he's hurt, but that might not be the worst thing for the Hurricanes. They need a goalie. Both these teams need goalies, honestly. And if we're being honest, I'm not a GM. The trade deadline is coming up in a few weeks. One of these teams should trade for Jacob Markstrom. That's just my opinion. And he has a no trade, but then you let Dustin Wolf take over the. We don't have time for that rant, but I kind of like this game, and there's not much ownership on it. Svechnikov should slide in with Aho and Teravainen. Teravainen's been on an assist tear lately. He's been over a point per game player over the past few weeks. I think, forget the exact stat. I could be wrong there, but I do like Carolina 1 here. So with the line matching, it's a bit interesting because they might run into that Nico Hischier line a bit because I'm not sure who the stall line is going to go out against. Probably Jack Hughes. I don't know, because that Hischier line has been fuego. Like, that Hischier line has been insanely good. So, I don't know. Only Rod the Bod knows. But I do like Carolina 1 here. They're coming in like 5.6%, and then that stall line is coming in at 5.1% with Jarvis on it. I'd much rather just play Carolina 1 there. You want to go back to Martin Necas, who had a hat trick. Go for it. but they're coming in wildly over leveraged. Carolina won, positively leveraged, fully correlated. They have a good matchup, good 5-on-5 matchup, unless they run into the Easter line, a good power play matchup. So in on Carolina won. Devil side's kind of interesting because we always talk about, right? If the Carolina Hurricanes just got anywhere decent goaltending, they win games. They just haven't been getting it. Now Ronta's hurt. Kochetkov hasn't been great. Freddie Anderson isn't back yet. So there's not much ownership on the Hughes line at 3.6%. The Nico Hischier line at 2.1%. The Hischier line has been incredible with Palat and Bratt. I don't even mind going there because, like, assuming the Stahl line goes out against Hughes, which is what I would do if I was the coach. I don't know if that's just short-sighted or not. That would leave a decent matchup for the Hischier line. 15-9. I don't know if I'll get there in 1-3, but they would definitely be in my MME portfolio. So Carolina won, and the Hughes and the Hischier line.
Yeah, Carolina won, certainly. They did run power plays this morning, thankfully. Carolina did. Obviously, Svechnikov joining the top unit. They're not going to be fully correlated, though. They're leaving Michael Bunting. Yeah, they're leaving Michael Bunting up there, Bunting and Jarvis. So you only get 2 out of the 3, but I mean, Svechnikov is the important one, right? We talked about it a lot on this show, how much he means to the power play. The power play generates 30% more shots when Svechnikov has been there this season versus out of the lineup. So you take a New Jersey penalty kill that's really they're not that good. Like, they're not a bad penalty kill. Like, we have seen some bad penalty kills. We'll talk about one in the very next game, I imagine. They're not that, but they're not anything to be worried about, especially with the goaltending that they've been getting. New Jersey doesn't take a ton of penalties. Carolina's been drawing a decent amount of power plays, though. They're at 3.7 minor penalties drawn per game over the last 8 weeks. So they're getting their fair share of power play time. Svechnikov back is big for them. I imagine Svechnikov is going to end up going out against Hischier. They kept the Aho line away from Hischier the last time they were there, but Jack Hughes was injured. And I got to think that they put out Stahl against Jack Hughes and Toffoli. But the thing is like the Hischier line, like, for as good, they have been tremendous offensively, and we'll talk about New Jersey in a second. But the defensive numbers aren't like incredible. Like 2.7 expected goals against in 180 minutes for that Hischier line. That's below average. If you look at league-wide expected goals against numbers. And obviously, because of how bad their goaltending is, the goals against numbers are even worse than that. So it's not really, even if they run into Hischier, it's not a great, like, elite matchup or anything, but it's nothing to be really that worried about. The Carolina top line with Svechnikov there, 3.5 goals per 60 minutes. Svechnikov hadn't been shooting a lot. That was something that really concerns me. His last 20 games, he has 52 shots. 2.5 shots per game for Andrei Svechnikov is really not that good. You definitely like to see him shooting more. But you mentioned that, like, there's not a ton of ownership, 5.6% on that top line. Like, even if that comes up to like 7, 8, 9%, I think that's perfectly fine when you're facing this New Jersey goaltending. And like you said, Carolina's a 3.6 total. Second highest on the board here tonight, and it's them in Tampa Bay, and then everybody else is quite a ways below. So, yeah, I really do like Carolina 1. Carolina 2, yes, they're coming in with a lot of ownership. I still think there are merits to playing. I think you can one-off all 3 guys for 3 different reasons, right? Like Natchez, like, that guy's been on an absolute tear since he came back. 35 shots. It's like averaging 5 shots a game in 7 games since he came back. Obviously, had that first period natural hat trick in the last game. Michael Bunting's on the top power play unit. Jack Drury is a really cheap center that is projecting extremely well here tonight. So I think there are reasons to one-off any of them. I don't think I would full stack them. I think if I'm full stacking anything, it's Carolina 1. I mean, on the New Jersey side, assuming that Hughes, Toffoli, and Holtz do see that Stahl matchup, that kind of takes me out of Jack Hughes a little bit. That line's just been tremendous defensively, almost regardless, but even better without, Jesper Fast, like, maybe he's taking a step back. Like, they've been better with Seth Jarvis there. So not in so much on the Hughes line. The Hischier line, as you said, has been really, really good offensively. 4 expected goals, 5.4 actual goals per 60 minutes in their 180 minutes together. Jesper Bratt, 36 shots in his last 10 games. They'll probably see a fair bit of that Carolina top line, which, league average by expected goals against numbers. So it's not a brutal matchup. And then you have the Carolina goaltending. Like Kochetkov got pulled the other night, and then they put him back in after Ronta got hurt. So they're running out of goaltenders, and it's not like Kochetkov has been anything special. What kind of worries me is, I don't know, I watched that New Jersey Carolina game. It's one thing to look at the numbers for Carolina's penalty kill, and the penalty kill numbers are great. It's another thing to watch them. They do not give you a half second to breathe at any point in time. And a lot of New Jersey's damage this season has come on the power play. So if the power play can't get there, they have to do it at 5-on-5. And obviously with Kochetkov being very iffy in net, they can get there. But I think I agree that I would go to the Hischier line. It's not if I'm playing New Jersey. I don't think I'm playing New Jersey here tonight, but that would be the line that I would go to. Only 2.1% ownership. They've been playing extremely well. It is a tough line against Stahl. This is still a very good offensive line, and they only need to generate 6, 7, 8 shots to get 2 or 3 goals against this Carolina goaltending. So I'm fine with playing the Hischier line, but it is the Aho line I like best in this game by a lot.
The one caveat, I agree. The one caveat I will say with the Hischier line, Brett Pesce is a game time decision. If Tony DeAngelo is in again, the Hughes line is going to see the top pair matchups. You might see Nico Hischier get an occasional matchup against the Tony DeAngelo pairing, and he just sucks. So
I honestly wonder, even if DeAngelo dresses, I'm wondering if they don't pretty much just go to 5 defensemen, because they I know Colorado's different from New Jersey. Even when the second and third and fourth lines for Colorado were out, they were skating circles around him. They can't afford, with the way Carolina's goaltending is, they can't afford to have, DeAngelo pretty much be a pylon on the ice. That's why, even if Pesce's out, I think they ended up just rotating 5 defensemen pretty much.
Yeah, Tony D played 13 minutes on Thursday, and he got power play 2 time, and Carolina had a bunch of power plays, so he probably played 38 seconds at even strength. So yeah. Tampa Bay Lightning with a 3.7 total heading into Columbus. The Blue Jackets have a 2.9 total. Blue Jackets coming off their bye. They are going with Boone Jenner, with Chinnikov and Johnny Gaudreau, Marchenko with Vonkarov and Kent Johnson, Sillinger with Ralstovic and Texier. Tampa going with Kucherov, Point, and Stamkos. Hagel, Cirelli, and Paul. And then Esamont, Mont, and Sheary. That line, Esamont, Mont, and Sheary, 7% projected ownership because they're 7,800. I mean, I don't think you need to full stack that, but I don't even think one-offing a 7% Esamont seems bad for your health. But highest top 2 stack total on the board is Tampa 36.9%, 15.1% projected ownership, very high positive leverage here. It's a very good 5-on-5 matchup. It is a very good power play matchup. And Columbus is coming off their bye. So, what do you really want to say about Tampa 1 here? I think they're in a great spot. I think they're a great offensive line. If you can fit them, you can play them. If they're your guys, you play your guys. I don't care about the ownership. They have positive leverage. Now, you want to go to Tampa 2 as a filler. I think that ownership is a bit worrisome, almost 10% on that line. I know you're a huge Brandon Hagel fan, and Cirelli's been better and Paul's on the top power play, but Paul is legit just a guy on that power play. He does nothing. So I don't think you need to go to that line. You want to go to Cirelli, Hagel for the 5-on-5. That's fine, but Kucherov, Point, Stamkos, fully correlated. That line is just pure gasoline. So I'm in on Tampa 1, not so much on the other ones. On the Columbus side, don't really love the Jenner, Chinnikov, Gaudreau line. Gaudreau just is having a bad season. I do like the Kent Johnson line. They are coming in negatively leveraged at 3.9%. If you watch Columbus hockey, and I'm not sure why you would outside of being a Columbus Blue Jackets fan. I have watched some, unfortunately. The two players that do stick out every time I watch them is Marchenko and Johnson. So they're on the line together. You can play them as a filler. Like, Tampa's just not great defensively. I know the Hagel, Cirelli, Paul line is better. Like, Cirelli and Hagel numbers are so much better without Stamkos, but I doubt they're going to see a ton of the Marchenko, Johnson, Vonkarov line, so I don't mind Columbus 2 as a filler, but this is a Tampa 1 game for me.
Yeah, we'll start with the chalky side. I mean, they're not even, well, some of it's chalky. We'll start with the Tampa side. That Tampa top line, we had talked quite a bit, like when they put Stamkos up there this season, like they're generating quite a bit, but they weren't scoring. That started to turn itself around. Just since Christmas, 3.6 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. So they've definitely started to fill the net a little bit more. Kucherov still kind of doing his thing, 22 shots in his last 5 games. Like, the guy's just not really slowing down. It's a really, really good power play spot. Like, before we went to the All-Star break, we were talking about how the Columbus penalty kill had really taken a dive basically since like the middle of December, after the injuries to Sean Corrali and Boone Jenner. So I went and looked at the Columbus penalty kill numbers in the 6 games since they got Boone Jenner back. I think it's 24th by shot attempts against and 30th by goals against per minute. While shorthanded, they've given up 6 power play goals against in the 6 games since Boone Jenner's gotten back. So it's not like the penalty kill's really been all that much better. That's why, like, if I'm playing Tampa tonight, don't get me wrong, I get going to, like, I wrote Mikey Esimont up in the article today. I wanted to see him on the second line like he was last game. He's back down on the third line. That kind of sucks. I get wanting to play those second and third lines. Brandon Hagel's got 7 points in his last 5 games. Like, I'm going to be, like, we talk about underrated players all the time. I honestly think Brandon Hagel is the most underrated player in the league, and it's because he's on a team with Kucherov, Point, Stamkos, and Hedman and Vasilevsky and all those guys. So, I get going to them, but like you were talking about Nick Paul and Cirelli just have bad offensive numbers together, and it doesn't matter. And the thing is like they're so bad offensively together, not even Brandon Hagel can save them. Like they're 90 minutes together, 2.3 expected goals per 60 minutes with Nick Paul on the wing. And the offensive numbers aren't any better, whether you put Stamkos there or whether you put, I think Connor Sheary spent some time up there. I think, even Nikita Kucherov has found his way to that line at times when they, moved him away from Braden Point. It just hasn't mattered. Like, they just don't have good offensive numbers together. Like, Paul is good at creating offense kind of on his own. Like, he is a big physical guy that can kind of get to the net, but he's not like a great playmaker or anything like that. He can't play with those elite players. That's just why they don't sustain any offense. So out on Tampa 2, I'm out on Tampa 3. Like, if you want to one-off some guys, if you want to, if you're playing super expensive Edmonton later or whatever, and you want to play them, like Tampa has a huge total. I just think if I'm playing Tampa Bay here tonight, I'm playing the power play guys. I'm going into that top line. I'm not worried about the Boone Jenner matchup. Chinnikov and Gaudreau so far this season, 2.8 expected goals against. I don't think Jenner's going to help that much. Like I said, the Tampa top line has really come alive offensively. So if I'm playing anything, if I'm full stacking a line in this game, it's Tampa 1. If you want to take off one of the guys and put on Paul to save some money, like for a power play stack, like you can do that. But it is Tampa 1 that I would play just because I think this in particular, it's the power play matchup that's appealing to me. On the Columbus side, I agree with you. I don't have any interest in that Jenner, Chinnikov, Gaudreau line. They're not coming in with much ownership, 2 to 3%, and I think that's fine. And the thing is like they are returning from their bye, so I'm not expecting them to have a good game here tonight. But they will be matched up against that Stamkos Kucherov line, and they are bad defensively. 3.6 expected goals against, 3.6 actual goals against per 60 minutes. Kucherov and Point just have not been good defensively this season. I think it's because they need them to carry the offense, but it doesn't matter. Almost basically anybody but Brandon Hagel, and they have bad defensive numbers. So it is a good matchup for that Columbus top line. if this were a week from now and Columbus had 2 or 3 games under them, I would honestly be considering playing them. I just worried coming off the bye week. They're not really like that low, like 2.8% against a 3.2% top 2 stack percentage. Like it's not really that great a leverage or anything. I think they're fine, but if I'm playing anything from the Columbus side, it is that second line. Like Kent Johnson and Voronkov are only at 60 minutes together, but 76 shot attempts, 3.6 expected goals per 60 before the break. They're all on the top power play unit together. Marchenko has 29 shots in his last 10 games. I wrote up Voronkov in the picks article today, free to read over at Stokastic.com. 1.23 goals per 60 minutes, leads rookies, points per 60, just behind Connor Bedard, 94th percentile expected goals rate individually, 82nd percentile goals rate. Like he's very, very good at getting to the net, and that can help open up some space for a shooter like Marchenko or a playmaker like Johnson. With Nick Paul on that Tampa Bay second line, like I'm not super concerned. They do have good defensive numbers, but I'm not super concerned about the Columbus second line being able to generate. It's just, again, it's one of those things where they are coming in with a little bit of negative leverage, 3.9% against 1.2% top 2 stack. It's off the bye week. Tampa Bay lost Sergachev, but that's more of a loss on offense than a loss on defense. Like I if I'm playing Columbus tonight, it is the second line that I would prefer, but it's Tampa Bay top line. Like that is just one of my favorite lines on the entire slate that graded super well. So it's Tampa 1 for me out of this game more than anything.
Yeah, same. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to get to Columbus. I am always a bit leery when these teams are coming off buys and there's teams on more than half the slate has gotten a game under their belt. I always worry about these bye week teams, especially bad teams like Columbus. Let's talk about another bad team. Toronto Maple Leafs with a 3.5 total heading into Ottawa. The Senators have a 3.1. Which bad team am I talking about? They both suck. So Ottawa, another team coming off the bye. Jake Sanderson's out. Ottawa's lines are just a mess. It's Tkachuk, Batherson, and Norris. Why, SpongeBob? Why? Stützle, Giroux, Joseph, fine, whatever. Pinto, Tarasenko, Grieg. I like that one. So, like, it's the lines aren't a mess. Josh Norris is just out of place, is what I should just say. Thing is, like, Norris, Batherson, Tkachuk going out against Matthews, Marner, Knees, Fly My Kite, however you pronounce it. Like, they're good defensively, but they're not great. They're about league average. I really don't want to play Josh Norris here. So you go to that second line, Stützle, Giroux, Joseph. They're going out against Tavares, Nylander, Bertuzzi. And when Bertuzzi's on that second line with Tavares, they have very good defensive numbers. So I don't know. Don't particularly love the second line. I think I don't mind the Pinto, Tarasenko, Grieg line as a filler, 12,100, 1.8% projected ownership. Like the bottom 6 of the Leafs, that third line, Robertson, Domi, Gregor, it's not awful, but like where you take advantage of the Leafs is in that bottom 6 and at that goaltending. And, Pinto, Tarasenko, Grieg, pretty good third line. Don't mind them as a filler. Again, they're coming off their bye. They're not a great team. It makes me nervous. Toronto is not coming off their bye, and we saw them humming like a hummingbird. I don't know what hums other than hummingbirds, but like their ownership reflects in it, right? Nylander, Tavares, Bertuzzi, 18-3, 20.1% projected ownership. Like at 20%, I'd rather just spend the extra $5K and save the 5% ownership and go play Tampa 1. I think what you can do here, honestly, is some sort of power play stack. I think you can go like Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Matthews, Marner, something along those lines, right? This is a very, very good power play spot. It's a very good power play spot, honestly, on both sides. Like the Leafs penalty kill sucks too. So like, I guess you could power play stack the Sens, and I'm sorry that my mind is going back and forth from the teams, but like that's just how my brain works, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. But I think this is a Leafs game, and I think in order to get lower ownership in a high ownership game, you take a power play stack. And even if all three of the guys come in at 15%, that specific combo is going to be lower owned. So I think power play stacking on Toronto is the way to go. My favorite even strength line to stack on Ottawa is the Pinto line, but I think you can pick and choose some power play guys from the Sens. I just don't love it. Both these teams suck.
I mean, that's one way of putting it. I'm wondering how the line matching is going to work out because we haven't seen these particular line combinations a lot this year.
And I feel like with Stützle, Giroux, and Joseph, they might go out against the Matthews line.
That like seeing those three names together tells me I think that line is going to go out against Matthews, and then they'll use Norris, Tkachuk, and Batherson against the second and third lines. Like I don't imagine they put Matthew Joseph with Tim Stützle and then don't use them as a shutdown line. Moreover, it's 21 games now under Jacques Martin. Surely to hell, he's figured out you cannot match Josh Norris up against Austin Matthews.
I don't think he's figured it out.
Maybe he has. I don't think so. Like, maybe not. I guess we'll find out tonight. The nice thing is like with Ottawa coming off their bye, I'm not as concerned about the matchups as I would be because honestly, like Stützle, Giroux, and Joseph, not a huge sample, but pretty good defensive numbers together, as you would expect. 52 shot attempts against, 1.8 expected goals against per 60 in over 90 minutes together. That's a line that I would expect to be pretty good defensively, and it's a line that I wouldn't avoid because it's the good power play matchup against Ottawa no matter what. But it would give me a little bit of pause. Like with them coming off their bye, like I don't have nearly as much concern. I'm not playing Ottawa here tonight. Like that's just straight up. Like I get wanting to go to some of the power play guys, but they've also split up their power play guys as well, right? Like Tim Stützle is on the quote top power play unit, while Tkachuk and Norris are quote on the second power play unit. Those are guys that have typically played a lot together on the power play this season. With Jake Sanderson out, you're probably going to have Shabbat on one unit and then Chikrin on the other. Like it seems like to me, like they're going to run two even power play units. Stützle, Tarasenko, Batherson, and probably Kubalik on one. And then Tkachuk, Giroux, Pinto, and Norris on the other. So you get Tkachuk and Norris on one power play unit. And, the least penalty kill has just fallen apart. Like bottom 5 in the league bad. Over the last 6 weeks, basically. So it's not a bad power play spot for Ottawa. I just don't like them, having 10 days off and then having to play the Leafs, and the Leafs have gotten some legs under them. So I don't like these line combinations offensively anyway. I'm not someone that's running out to play Josh Norris at 7, 8, 9% or whatever. So If I were to play anything from Ottawa, it would honestly be that Norris line. Like I don't like them as a line, but they have decent offensive numbers together. 65 shot attempts, 2.6 expected goals per 60. 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. But like Norris has 28 shots in 14 games. Like this is a guy playing prime minutes with all of Ottawa's top stars, and he's managing 2 shots a game. Like
that's all he does too, is shoot. He has no playmaking.
It's like this isn't a Robert Thomas who's like an elite playmaker or whatever. Like Josh Norris is literally there to do nothing but shoot and score goals, and he's doing neither. So I'm out on Ottawa. I'm in on Toronto. What sucks about Toronto is they're just coming in with a ton of ownership, right? That second line coming in at 20% ownership. The Nylander, Tavares, Bertuzzi line. The first line at 13%. Matthews, Marner, Nyes. I wrote up Toronto too in the picks article. Again, free to read over at Stokastic.com. The big problem with the Tavares line was Tavares' finishing, right? 46 games into the season, he was shooting 7%. This is a guy who'd never shot below 10% in any season of his career in a 3-year average of 12%. But he has goals in 3 straight games. That line is up to, I think it was 3.1 goals per 60 since Christmas. Not bad offensive numbers. I do think they avoid Stützle, but I think my favorite thing in this entire game is just the Toronto power play stack. Ottawa, not a disciplined team, 3.8 times shorthanded per game over the last 8 weeks. That basically goes back to when Martin took over. The Toronto power play, I mentioned this in the picks article because I wrote about Austin Matthews. Toronto power play, 15.1 goals per 60 minutes going back to Christmas. That's better than Edmonton's. Like, they've been absolutely torching opponents. They've been drawing some more power plays. Like I said, Ottawa's been fairly undisciplined as well. Like, if anything, if I'm even strength stacking out of this game, it is the Nylander, Tavares, Bertuzzi line, but it is a power play stack from the Toronto side that I like best. So, like, Matthews, Nylander, Marner, Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, like something like that. It is expensive. They're going to be higher owned than, like, Edmonton. But I think there are a lot of cheap spots on this slate that we can go to. There are a lot of cheap one-offs you can use as well. I really like the Toronto power play matchup here tonight. So it's a Toronto power play stack for me and probably nothing from the Ottawa side.
Yeah, which sucks because, like, Toronto penalty kill is awful. Like, I watched some of their games. Jake McCabe sucks. Holy shit, is he bad? But the reason I'm bringing that up is because Martin is an idiot. Because, like, he's running these two power play units. They're splitting them up. They're running them 50-50. Low, if you want to play them 50-50, go 60-40, load a unit, and then put that second unit. I understand, like, it's a lost season. They're trying to figure out what they have. But Martin has nothing in between his brain, like, in between the ears. Like, stop playing Norris on the top line. Give Grieg a chance up there. Give Pinto a chance up there. You know what you have with Norris. A third-line winger making $7 million a year. Let's move on. Holy moly, I am angry. Chicken soup is boiling. Anyway, if you want to sign up for NHL Premium, click the link in the chat. And what do you get with that? I'll tell you. The best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get player and ownership projections. You get top stacks tools. You get line combinations. You can get access to the Discord. We have some interesting characters in there. We have a good time in there. We have a lot of strategy talk. We have Che Guevara in there. You know, he's you fade his goalie picks and you just print money. That's just usually how you win. I haven't been fading his goalie picks and I've been getting slaughtered. You stack against his goalie and you print. You get in the Discord for that. You go, hey, Che Guevara, who are you playing in net tonight? And he'll tell you because he's a nice guy, and you just stack against. You don't need this. You don't even need anything else. No, I'm just kidding. But like, you kind of do want to fade his goalie picks, but no, he's a good guy. We have a lot of characters in the Discord. It is really a good time, and appreciate your support again. Let's move on before my head explodes. But this game sucks. Seattle Kraken with a 2.7 total heading into Philly. The Flyers have a 2.8 total. Matty Benier is back for Seattle. This game's a 5.5, right? And Seattle's coming off the bye, which Seattle's already hard enough to figure out how to stack. And they're coming off their bye. It's not the best matchup. I know Philly's defensive numbers have been sliding. I don't know, man. Like, I just don't love stacking Seattle here. And I'm not alone. None of their lines are coming in above 1.4%. 3 of the 4 are coming in under 1%. I guess, if anything, it would be the Bjorkstrand, Tolvin, and Gord line. Like, they've just been the best line all season. It's just, no, numbers don't lie. Puck don't lie. But again, like, I don't love them on this slate coming off the bye. Philly plays at such a slow pace at home. I like if they happen to get, they're like your last stack in your MMA, fine. But like, I'm not running out to play them. The Philly side's a bit more interesting. Couturier, Atkinson, Tippett line coming in negatively leveraged, 6.3% top 2 stack, 11.4% ownership projection. I don't love that, right? Because Seattle is just a good defensive team. And they also play at a slow pace. So I don't love playing negative leverage Couturier here. If I'm going to go to the line, it would be Farabee, Frost, Konechny. I listen, like Konechny is one of those players you could just one off. I don't think you need a full stack. I think you go Konechny, Farabee, Frost, Konechny, something like that. I just don't love this game from a DFS perspective. It just screams low scoring, slow pace, choppy hockey. So this is more of an MME game for me.
Yeah, I'll start on the Philly side. I did write up Owen Tippett in the picks article. Been doing more research into him like this week. Like we talked about it on Thursday. He's been one of the best players in generating off the rush. Like that's one thing about this Philly team is like, they have been a really, really good defensive team for most of the season, both at 5-on-5 and on the penalty kill, but they're also like an exciting offensive team. Not all the time. Sometimes they can play to a little bit of a slog, but like you have Konechny, you have Tippett, you have Farabee, like Morgan Frost is coming in his own. Sean Couturier is still a good offensive player on top of his defense. Like, they have some exciting games. I just don't know. Like Seattle coming off their bye screams like Seattle struggles to generate offense, but just clogs everything up defensively. Like that's just kind of like what I'm thinking. Like Seattle was a really good defensive team beforehand. Now, coming off the bye, they have to travel, from the West Coast. Like maybe they're going to be a step behind or something like that. But you're right about the Philly top line and the negative leverage. 11.4% ownership for that Philly top line feels really high to me. Like to stack a Philly line coming in, pardon me, with nearly double the ownership rate of their top two stack. And then on top of that, it's a line without Travis Konechny on it. Like, that's one of those things where I think I can get away from that one. So I agree with you on the Konechny, Farabee, Frost line. Konechny and Farabee in 115 minutes together this season. Farabee's another one of those like really underrated players that I think if he was playing 18 minutes a night in Colorado or something, like we'd be hearing a lot more about him. But Konechny and Farabee over 115 minutes together, 82 shot attempts, 3.2 expected goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. 4.1 actual goals. Like they are really scoring. Farabee has 33 shots in his last 10 games. Konechny has 31. These guys are both over 3 shots per game over their last 10. Some of that time spent on the top line with Couturier, but like Morgan Frost is turning into a good offensive center of his own. I do worry about Seattle just kind of clogging things up. Seattle doesn't take a lot of penalties. Actually, Seattle takes by far the least minor penalties or has been over the last 8 weeks. But, you don't stack the Flyers for their power play anyway. If I'm stacking anything, I agree with you. It is that Konechny line. But I think it's one-offs that I just like best on the Philly side. It's taking a one-off Tippett or a one-off Konechny. I think even a one-off Joel Farabee can work. That's kind of where I'm at with Philly in this matchup. Like, if it was like basically like 28 or 29 of the other teams aside from Seattle coming in, I would probably be playing Philadelphia here tonight. But I just think it's a brutal matchup against a really good defensive Seattle squad. On the Seattle side, like I'm just not playing them. Like I'm not stacking anything. Like I agree with you. If I were to stack anything on the Seattle side, it is that Gord, Tolvanen, Bjorkstrand line coming in. 1.7% top two stack, 1.4% ownership, 3.9 expected goals per 60 together since Christmas. Like they've really been generating pretty much at will against anybody. I don't imagine they're going to see much of that Couturier line. I imagine that Couturier line either goes out against the McCann line or the Beniers line. I don't think they're going to see much of them. So you do get those second line matchups, but like coming off the bye, first game in 10 days, coming from the West Coast against a great defensive team, against a great penalty killing team. Like it just feels like there's a lot of reasons not to stack Seattle here tonight. So I think you can one-off. This is a game where I'm going to be one-offing guys. Like one-off Bjorkstrand, I think is fine. One-off Jared McCann, I'm never going to say no. On the other side, like one-off Tippett, one-off Konechny. I just don't think this is a game unless I'm MMEing. Like if I'm playing single entry, I don't think this is a game where I'm going to stack. It's just a game where if I do a 3-2-1, then my one guy I don't mind taking from here, but I'm not stacking anything.
Yeah, you'll never say no to McCann. You know who said no to McCann? The Leafs. But anyway,
I mean, so did Florida and so did Vancouver. So
in Florida's defense, it wasn't when the computer boys were there.
Yeah, that's true. But Vancouver did trade him. Forget what that trade was. Oh, it was Eric Goodbranson. That's what it was. Jared McCann for Eric Goodbranson. That worked out.
Everyone loves a good Branson once in a while. I don't know why.
They don't love a bad Branson, that's for sure.
He sucks, but man, that is still the greatest offseason story in a while. The reason Johnny Gaudreau's in Columbus is because of Eric Goodbranson.
Eric Goodbranson got $16 million because Johnny Gaudreau likes him. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. But anyway, Pittsburgh Penguins with a 2.6 total heading into Winnipeg. The Jets have a 3 total. I was at first taken aback, and then I calmed down. Pittsburgh has the lowest total on the slate, which is crazy because Columbus is on the slate, Seattle is on the slate. I guess that's Arizona's on the slate, but like 2.6 total. Vegas is finally respecting teams going into Winnipeg. They are an excellent team. They have a very good goalie, even though Brossoit got lit up as chalk the other night. It happens. It's hockey. Pittsburgh played yesterday. They lost to Marc-Andre Fleury. This is interesting because Winnipeg moved Nikolai Ehlers up to the top line in Gabriel Velarde's spot. So Velarde's on the second line with Monahan and Perfidi. The way Winnipeg matches at home, that Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers line is going to match up against, Malkin, Smith, and O'Connor, or the third line matchup, right? Third line actually looks like it's going to be a pretty decent line with Puljujarvi there. We'll have to wait and see. He's only played like 9 minutes in the 2 games. He's still getting his legs under him. But the Malkin, Smith, O'Connor line, with Smith there, they're good offensively, but it suffers defensively when Riley Smith is there, which is surprising. Because he was excellent in Vegas last season. He just has not had a good season. But the point is, if Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers are going to see that line, I am interested in Connor, Scheifele, and Ehlers. Also, you could go to Velarde, Monahan, Perfidi. They're 14-5, which is almost fillerish. You're going to see, some of that Malcolm line, some of the Ehlers line. You can. I just prefer to go to Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers. I wish Ehlers was on the top power play unit, but again, this isn't the best power play spot. Pittsburgh has a good penalty kill, so I am in on Winnipeg 1. Pittsburgh side, I don't have a ton of interest. The only thing I would say about Pitt 1 is they're coming in with almost no ownership, like 2.1% projected. And for that reason, with the fully correlated line, I think you can play them in your MME portfolio. I know Winnipeg's penalty kill has gotten a bit better, but their penalty kill still isn't the best. That's the way you can take advantage of playing the Jets. So I would have some Pitt 1 in my MME mix.
Yeah. Pittsburgh is kind of an interesting case here because they're going to see that Lowry line at 5-on-5. The Crosby line is. Crosby line, you don't want to talk about trading chances. Like Brian Rust was injured, so they haven't played a ton of time together, but lately, but 65 minutes together since Christmas, 79 shot attempts for, 76 shot attempts against for 60 minutes. Like that is absolutely bonkers pace. As we always say, like around 120 shot attempts for and against per 60 is fairly high pace. These guys are over 150. It's absolutely wild. Crosby has 43 shots in his last 10 games. It seems like he's almost trying to will this team to the playoffs, but it's not. I mean, you don't stack Pittsburgh for the power play anyway, because the power play really hasn't been that good, but, the Jets really don't take a lot of penalties either. Like you talk about their penalty kill getting better. And I think part of it is also just not taking a lot of penalties, like 3 minor penalties taken per game over the last 8 weeks. Like that's well below the league average. That's amongst the lowest 8 teams, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. So I don't really have a ton of interest in Pitt 1. If I was playing 20 lineups, like I might have 1 or 2 of them just because there won't be any ownership and they do have a very good line that can get there. I just think like if I'm going to they're 21,600. If I'm going to pay up, like we'll talk about Edmonton in a couple games from now, I would probably just go find like the extra $1,700 and play Edmonton instead, right? Like that's just kind of the way that I look at it. So I'm not in so much on Pittsburgh here. again, if you're playing MME, obviously you're going to have some Penguins. This is a very brutal matchup. Winnipeg is, I think, aside from Carolina, probably the best defensive team in the league. So, and unlike Carolina, they have Connor Hellebuck and not the Zamboni driver in net. So,
Zamboni driver being great.
Like I said, can he post an 850? If he can post an 850, maybe you should sign him.
David Ayers at 46 years old, whatever he is, could post an 850 for Carolina. I'm convinced.
It is the Winnipeg side that I do like here. I wrote up Winnipeg back when I thought it was Velarde in the picks article. It doesn't change a lot for me. It's not a perfectly correlated line anymore with Ehlers there, but it's not like the Winnipeg power play has been very good. And the Pittsburgh penalty kill hasn't been elite of late, but has generally been pretty good this season. And, Winnipeg doesn't draw a ton of power plays anyway. But I do like that Winnipeg top line. They're up to about 80 minutes together with Ehlers there. 3.4 expected goals, 81 shot attempts per 60. I'm not really worried about any of the matchups on the Pittsburgh side. Maybe you run into that Eller line. And I honestly think an Eller, Puljujarvi, Raquel third line is going to be a pretty good third line. But I'm not super concerned about it on a road back-to-back. Ehlers' ice time had been going down of late, but that was with a healthy lineup, and he was on the second line, and the second line sometimes gets used as the third line. Now that he's on the top line, I feel pretty confident he's going to play 16, 17 minutes. I really do like Winnipeg one here. I did write them up in the picks article for a very good reason. And they're not coming in with a lot of ownership, 4.5% ownership on Winnipeg one. The problem that I have with playing Winnipeg 2, the Velarde, Monahan, Perfidi line, like I said, they're basically at the third line. The only reason they might get, quote, second line minutes is because Monahan and Velarde are on the top power play unit, right? I bet if we look at the 5-on-5 time by the end of the night, you're going to see that Velarde, Monahan, Perfidi line amongst the bottom six forwards. So without a ton of ice time, coming in a little bit over leverage. And at 14,500, they're filler-ish. If you're playing an even strength Toronto line, you can use them with them, but you can't use them with Tampa Bay. You can't use them with Edmonton. If you're playing with them with Toronto, go ahead. But other than that, who are you playing them with? Maybe Nashville. We'll talk about them. Maybe one of the Los Angeles lines. There's just not a lot of lines that I would want to play them with anyway. So for me, it's Winnipeg one that I like best in this game by quite a bit. If I were to play anything on the Pittsburgh side, I would just go with the very low-owned top line, but it's the Winnipeg top line that I do like best in this game by quite a bit.
Agreed. If you didn't know, and if you don't know, and you're watching this show, you have to be living under a rock. The Super Bowl is tomorrow, and if you are interested in MMEing some of these ginormous prize pools tomorrow, there's 712 million guaranteed in the main showdown. Should get those NFL sims. Click the link in the chat. You can get those NFL sims. You can simulate up to 10,000 lineups if you get the max package. What you need, ship some money, and be happy. Also, MMA today. The card starts in an hour. But next week we do have a nice pay-per-view. I'm going to try to get my video out earlier. I had internet issues, obviously, but I'll try to get out in the middle of the week this coming week. So stay tuned for that. Let's get to these last two games here. Arizona Coyotes, 2.8 total. Heading into Nashville, the Predators have a 3.2. 3.2 total coming off a bye makes me very nervous, especially with, veterans, we'll say, with Forsberg, O'Reilly, Nyquist. If it was a super young team and they're just super happy to be there, you know what I mean? Could be different. But these guys coming off a long layoff, you just never know how you're going to get a start. And the data supports the scoring being down, this and that. Obviously, there's outliers on any statistic, and they can certainly get there because they are fully correlated. And it is a very good power play matchup. They're 19K, 14.4% top two stack, 11.3% ownership projection. They have positive leverage. They're fully correlated. It is an excellent power play matchup. So, I get it. But I'd rather play Winnipeg one. I just think, Winnipeg's been playing. Certainly you can take your shots here because, of all the teams coming off bye weeks, I think this is easily the best matchup. So I think if you're going to play any of the teams coming off a bye, it would be Nashville here. And it would be Nashville 1. I don't have any interest in Novak Tomasino Glass at 10.4% projected. Like, I just don't. They're 8,800. Like, sweet. I'd rather play Esamont at 7% than Cody Glass at 10%. I think if you want to one-off Novak, go for it. Whatever. You want to eat that ownership, fit you in something you like, you do it. But not for me. I am in on Nashville 1. I think the Arizona side is interesting, right? Because they looked awful coming off their bye, but they have a game under their belt now, and this is also a good power play matchup. And Guenther, Hayton, Cooley, 10K flat, coming in with almost no ownership, raises the eyebrow a little bit. I think you can also go. There's 4 playable lines here, but if I had to go in order, I'm going Hayton, Cooley, Guenther. Then I think Keller, Schmaltz, McBain, and then Krause, Bukestad, Michelli. I think all 3 are playable. All 3 are a little bit different price points. They're all filler-ish to really filler-ish. But, yeah, I think going back to Arizona here, while their ownership is still really low coming off a bad game, is a nice way to get a low-owned combo in.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see Nashville that high owned. When you see their total, like, I guess that makes sense. You mentioned the ownership. It is high, 11.3%, 14.4% top 2 stack. Notice I brought Toronto up there for this reason. That Nashville line is only $800 cheaper than Toronto. Toronto only has a little bit more ownership. Both lines have positive leverage. So I look at it this way. Do I want to play the Nashville top line coming off their bye, like they haven't played in 10 days, against Arizona, or do I want to play the Toronto top line, who have had a couple games under their belt since returning from the bye, facing an Ottawa team that is coming off the bye of their own? Like, that's kind of the way that I look at it. Like, and they're both coming in with similar top 2 stack percentages, similar ownership rates, similar price. I just think it's a better spot for Toronto. So, like, if I'm going to play a line in that price range, at that ownership and that top 2 stack percentage and all that, like, I'd rather just go play Toronto. That's kind of the problem that I'm running into. The Nashville top line was on a tear. Like, we do have to get that, straight. Like, this was not a line playing poorly or anything like that. Nashville top line was at 3.4 expected goals, 4.1 actual goals in 180 minutes since Christmas, heading into the All-Star break. Like, they were playing extremely well. They are all over 20 minutes a game in the 6 games heading into the break. Forsberg had 26 shots in those 6 games as well. He was over 4 shots a game. Like, he was playing extremely well. Again, if it was this time next week, I would probably be playing Nashville here tonight. I just think coming off the bye with a similar lines, similar prices, similar upside and all that in Toronto, I would probably, I hate saying I'd rather go play the Leafs, but I think I'd rather go play the Leafs. That's just kind of where I am. I don't want to play a 10% Tommy Novak or whatever. It just sucks that they're going to be that high owned, because I think Novak, Tomasino, and Glass, like, the problem with Nashville is they mix up their lines every game. Like, the lines that they start with are almost never the lines that they finish every single game. That's kind of the problem with stacking their depth. It's only the top line that stays together. Novak, Tomasino, Glass, to me, looks like it would be a good depth scoring line. I just have concerns that they're going to get 12 minutes and then be broken up by the middle of the second period. Like, that's just kind of what it is. Like, I think one-offing anybody in the Nashville depth, Sissons, Novak, Tomasino, any of those 3 is perfectly fine. Just don't know about, like, just full stacking. It is the Arizona side that I am more interested in. I don't think I'm playing Guenther, Hayton, and Cooley. Like, I know, and by the way, I know they're listed as a 4th line. They got 13 to 15 minutes in that last game. Guenther up around 15 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, because he was on the top power play. So, like, these guys aren't getting like 9 minutes or whatever. And Guenther and Cooley have been playing well. They're up to 115 minutes together, 58 shot attempts for, 50 against. So carrying the shot attempt share, 2.9 expected goals for, 2 against. So carrying the expected goals as well. Guenther has 25 shots in 12 games since getting called up, so he's definitely getting involved offensively, even if he's not getting a lot of heavy minutes. I just think I would go to the top line. Like, I worry that Hayden's eventually going to take over. I think he even got a shift there towards the end of the game in his first game back. But they are playing well with McBain. Like, I do want to see Hayden there instead. But you can't really argue with the fact that with McBain on the top line's at 3.2 expected goals, 4.1 actual goals per 60 minutes. Like, that's really good. And the problem is like, even with Hayden, when Hayden was there, it was like the top line wasn't scoring basically until like the last couple of weeks before Hayden got hurt. Like, the first month of the season, they were struggling. So I kind of don't mind that Arizona top line. It sucks facing off against Ryan O'Reilly. But again, off their bye, not a terrible power play matchup. Coming in at 5% ownership, but honestly, 5% ownership for a Keller and Schmaltz line on a 7-game slate, like, I think that's perfectly fine. I wrote up Clayton Keller in the picks article. The 5-on-5 scoring had come around. He was over 3 shots per game in the 10 games heading into the break. He's a lot more expensive on FanDuel, so I think it's a little bit of a question of what to do on FanDuel, but not so much on DK. So I really do. If you want just one-off Keller, I think one-off in Keller is perfectly fine. But I like Arizona's top line the best in this game. I think the Cooley line is perfectly playable as some sort of filler type if you're playing Edmonton or Tampa Bay. I think Nashville 1 is playable because it is a really, really good power play spot for them. But like I said, if I'm going to play a line at like 19K or whatever, I'll just go play Austin Matthews.
Yeah. Leave off Marner, though. He sucks. No, you can definitely – I definitely prefer the Leafs. I don't definitely prefer Winnipeg, but I think I would play Winnipeg over them. It just – coming off a bye always just makes me nervous. Let's get to the last game of the night. Edmonton Oilers with a 3.3 total heading into L.A. The Kings have a 3.1. Edmonton won last night in Anaheim. They didn't really travel. Like, Anaheim is next to LA. So they didn't go anywhere. They're just, the bus takes you to a different, you go this way instead of that way. You're in the same spot. This is an interesting matchup. Kings coming off a bye. And we have Lowe and McDavid. Makes me nervous. 3.5% projected for Edmonton 1. Like, and I get it because Tampa Bay is in a really, really good spot, and LA is pretty good defensively. It's just goalie issues. They're coming off their bye. Edmonton back-to-back on the road, but like 23-3, fully correlated, 3.5% McDavid. Like, what do you even say there? I really like them. It annoys me that they moved Fogle off the second line because now, like, Draisaitl, Kane, Perry, like, there's no way that the line's going to be good defensively now, which kind of gives me some Kings here. It's just like I don't love it with them coming off their bye. Edmonton's penalty kill has been great. Stuart Skinner has been really, really good of late. I think you could play, more Fiala Deneau. I'd rather for that 17-4, right? I'd rather go play Carolina 1. You know what I mean? It's a tough, like Edmonton in the beginning of the year, you stack against them. Now they're just good. But like that Draisaitl, Kane, Perry line, like there's no way that line's going to be good defensively. And I want to stack against that line with a line that doesn't have a ton of ownership right now. I just wish the Kings weren't coming off their bye.
So I had to go out of town yesterday, so I was doing a lot of driving. I usually don't listen to NHL radio, but I happen to be listening to NHL radio. Since Jay Woodcroft took over, it's been almost 3 months now, I think, because I think it was November 18th, or Jay Woodcroft got fired. Knobloch took over, sorry. Yeah. I think it's been almost 3 months now. It was November 18th that they made that change, if I'm not mistaken. Edmonton is allowing the fewest rush shots against of any team in the league. This is a team that stifles the opponent through the neutral zone. Los Angeles like one of their problems with scoring over like the last 5 or 6 weeks, especially the top line, was that they couldn't really create anything off the rush. And Kopitar, like he's not a young guy. He's like not a young guy. He's our age. You know what I mean? So like he's not a guy that can really go grind in the offensive zone. Quentin Byfield can, but Adrian Kempe, he's fine. But you'd want him shooting. You don't want him necessarily forechecking and grinding below the face-off dots. Coming off their bye and all that. Like I just don't have any interest in playing Los Angeles. It really worries me when they bring a new coach in and he leaves everything the exact same. And it's not a new coach like he was the assistant coach for Todd McClellan. Defensive pairs are the same. Top 6 lines are the same. They might have shuffled some deck chairs on that bottom 6 that they call the Titanic in the bottom 6 that they call their third and fourth lines. But that really doesn't do anything for me. I don't have a lot of interest in the Kings here tonight. They're coming in with positive leverage. I want the top line. I want to see them get better before I start playing them. Is one thing, because it has been 2 months now that they've been struggling to generate any sort of quality. And if you're not generating quality and you're playing against a team that has elite rush defense, and you're coming off your bye, not having played in 10 days, I'm wondering how you're going to create against this team. So, I'm out on the Kings. One off Fiala, I think you can do. One off Kempe, I think is fine. Things like that. But I'm definitely not stacking them. It's the Edmonton top line. I do like the Edmonton top line here tonight. The Kings top line had been playing good defensively. That's the one thing that they had been able to hang their hat on. Here's the thing. Over Los Angeles' last 18 games, going back to Christmas, their penalty kill is at a .936 save percentage. You and I always talk about anything over 900 is regression territory. And even really good goalies this season are at 880. This team's at 936 over their last 18 games, and they're coming off their bye week and they get the Edmonton Oilers. Is there a better spot for that regression to start kicking in than tonight? Right? That's one thing that I was really thinking about. McDavid, Hyman, and Nugent Hopkins, they're not scoring, but it's because they're shooting under 6%. They're shooting under 6% as a line since January 1st, but they're still at 3.5 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5. McDavid has 48 shots in his last 10 games. I really do like Edmonton 1 here. If you want to get away from a much chalkier Tampa Bay, if you have some filler lines that you like, there are some filler lines that we talked about that I do like here tonight. I think this isn't what I would normally go to for an Edmonton stack, like this particular matchup. But Los Angeles coming off their bye and with goaltending that is screaming regression on the penalty kill makes me think this could be a good night for the Edmonton power play. I want the Edmonton power play, guys. I like the Edmonton top line here.
Yeah, and they're low owned, which is just medicine.
That's what makes some of those filler stacks more palatable. The stacks that are 2% top 2 stack but 6 or 7% ownership, you can get away with that because you're playing at 3, 4, 5% Edmonton top line.
It's true. It is true. Let's talk about some defensemen, shall we? We love our defensemen. Top of the board, Roman Josi, 7,200. Everyone else is under 7K, under 6,500, except for Bouchard, who is 6,500. The guys who stick out, literally, I think the top 5 most expensive guys on the board are playable here tonight. Josi, Bouchard, Werenski, Hedman, Riley. I like Bouchard, Hedman, Riley the most, but I think Josi, the team's coming off the bye. You play the defenseman, it's kind of like playing against the Sharks. The defensemen are going to play a lot regardless. So, but Bouchard, Hedman, Riley stick out. Josi and Werenski definitely playable. Who else you liking?
Yeah, I have Josi. He is projecting super well, but again, I'm just worried about Nashville coming off their bye. Hedman and Riley are the 2 guys at the top of my list. Obviously, Hedman for very good reasons, and Riley because that Toronto power play has been so good, and Ottawa coming off their bye with a team that's bad defensively, and their penalty kill is not that good. So, and they take a lot of penalties. So I really do like Riley. In the mid price range, it's Burns and Dursey that are sticking out more than anything. Burns, him and Slavin have been an excellent defense pair with Svechnikov back. Helps his power play upside a lot. So Burns and Durzi in that mid-price range. Jacob Chychrun as well for Ottawa. Feels like this is one of his games just to rack up a bunch of shots and blocks, but not really get any points. Josh Morrissey, I think he's finally priced, but in that mid-price range, it really is Burns and Durzi that sticks out. Lower price guys, Jamie Drysdale running the top power play for Philly. Pretty bad power play matchup, but it is Seattle coming off their bye. Maybe they can get lucky. I did write up Jacob Slavin in the picks article, especially if Brett Pesce is out tonight. I do like Jacob Slavin, but he's rating well anyway. Our boy, the Zoo, he might have to block a lot of shots tonight for Ottawa, so don't mind him. If you want to pay down, super cheap. Eric Chernak, all the way up to 2,600. Still getting ice time with Mikhail Sergachev out. David Desharnais playing on what I guess would be the top pair now for Edmonton, playing alongside Darnell Nurse. I think he was almost at 20 minutes last night. Stone Min, $2,500 punt if you need one on DraftKings.
Yeah, and block bonus in 4 of his last 5 games. There you go. Let's talk about some goalies. Do we have to?
Yeah, I was going to say, do we have to?
Yeah. Some people might get mad. Let's check out the goalie list here. Sucks.
It's just a giant red X through every single name.
The 3 most expensive goalies: Andrei Vasilevsky, Kochetkov, Marty Jones. Like, there's no reason to pay up for goalie. I played Igor last night, but there's no reason to pay up for goalie. Connor Hellebuyck at 8K interests me. I know people are like, hey, every time I play him, he turns into Smelly Buck. He's going to win the Vezina. Everyone yells at me about the goalie picks after after lock, you go, play video games or.
It's the best. Yeah. I just go like lay down on the couch. Maybe I'll play some video games. Maybe I'll always have hockey on. I'll just let them yell at you.
Yeah. It's fine. Like, better them yelling at me than my wife yelling at me. She doesn't yell at me, but like. Anyway, Stewie Skinner, 7,800 does interest me. LA's had a tough time scoring. Now they're coming off their bye. He has been very, very good since Chucky Knobloch. I know his name's not Chuck Knobloch, but and it is Riddick in goal for the Kings tonight, and it's Cal Peterson for the Flyers. It's just like I can't play those guys. Like, Yari's an interesting play at 7,400. My feelings on Yari. I don't love him, but at that price, I think you can play him. Going back to Ingram makes some sense here as well. I know he got yanked on a goal that got overturned, which is hilarious. But, going back to him, I think is fine. I don't know if I want to go below that. Like, it's just dicey.
Yeah, I wrote up Joey Decord in the picks article. What I mentioned is that the average shot distance he faces at 5-on-5 is further than any other goalie, regular starting goalie in the league. Philly definitely has had trouble scoring a lot of the times this season. Tough coming off the bye, but don't mind Decord as long as he stays under 8K. I like both goalies in that Winnipeg-Pittsburgh game. I hate to bring it back to the night when Connor Ingram got shelled and pulled. But it's another one of those, like, if Pittsburgh wins tonight, I don't think it's because they beat the Jets 6-5. It's because Tristan Jarry has a pretty good game and they win 3-1 or something like that, right? So I don't mind Jarry for cheap. Going back to Connor Ingram, absolutely, I think is perfectly fine against a Nashville team coming off their bye. I do have Stuart Skinner 5th on my list, so he's acceptable. But it's Decord, Ingram, and then the 2 goalies in the Winnipeg-Pittsburgh game that I have the most interest in.
Yeah, I mean, like, of all the goalie slates, this one isn't awful.
No.
Besides, like, if you have someone you like, you play them. Like, there's no good way to project goalies. There's no good way to tout goalies. You go off matchup. If there's some volume, they're just mythical creatures. So we do our best. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Do you remember forecheck, backcheck, trocheck?
Yes.
I got a new one for you. Grip it, rip it, and tip it. Let's go with Owen Tippett tonight. So
rip it, and tip it.
Yeah.
I had a really bad joke. I kept
it. I don't think you should say what you're thinking right now.
Yeah. It would have been great if Spencer was sitting in my lap. I would have said it. That would have been perfect. But he is upstairs living the dream right now. But I am gonna go Nick Schmaltz.
Ooh, that'd be something. I do like them Yotes here tonight. The Desert Dogs. I know Josh Anderson's not Montreal's Josh Anderson. Our Josh Anderson. If he's watching, he just did a little fist bump.
Yeah, and the reason he got traded from Chicago is he wasn't shooting. Now he is a very good player. Chicago does that a lot. Go look up Chicago's all-time trades. It's been a disaster. I don't know why I'm just shitting on the Blackhawks right now, but anyway, we will be back Tuesday, I believe. We're still on that. NHL still doing their thing where it's like 4-19.
I think I heard there's 46 games next week, and like 35 of them are on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So
we'll see you Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Valentine's Day is on Wednesday. We'll talk about it on Tuesday. But good luck, everybody. Click that link if you're looking to go premium. Smash the like on your way out. I've had quite a show. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck tonight, everyone.